Ya arranca la nota con Michael Imperioli, no se pongan nerviosos, no es clickbait, no es nada falso. Ya va a arrancar la nota con Michael Imperioli. Digo por segunda vez Michael Imperioli, lo voy a decir por tercera vez, porque lo entrevistamos en el marco de los 15 años del último capítulo de Los Sopranos y le preguntamos cosas de música, porque Sopranos es una serie que tiene mucha música y nuestro programa Oro Negro tiene mucho de música y de vinilo.
Sí, no solo le preguntamos de la música, le preguntamos otras cosas sin quemarle demasiado la cabeza, pero la excusa era la música de Sopranos, que tal vez es la mejor serie que tiene la televisión.
Sí, y también queríamos agradecer a Michael Imperioli que muchísima voluntad, muchísima garra para que se haga esta nota. Estaba filmando en Italia, le hinchamos las bolas, ¿no? Para decirlo en criollo, y el tipo decía, bueno, puede ser hoy, pero dale, hoy. Y nos conectábamos todos, pero bueno, pasaba que le cambiaban el día del rodaje, llovía, no podía. Bueno, finalmente pudimos hacer a la nota. Hay algunas cositas de cortecito de Zoom, hay una edición muy rústica, si se quiere. Hemos perdido el 80% de la visión subtitulando a la nota, pero salió adelante.
Entiendan que también estaba del otro lado del charco, con lo cual algunas cuestiones de conexión hay. Tuvimos que editarla, tuvimos que recortarla un poco, pero nos enteramos que vino a nuestro país, spoiler alert, y que bueno, que es un entusiasta de la música y del rock como nosotros, como ustedes que siguen este programa, así que disfrútenla.
Disfrútenla. Y nosotros vamos terminando esta apertura porque se nos está el trípode moviendo para un lado. Así que, Michael Imperioli en Oro Negro. It's 15 years since the last episode of The Sopranos. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm proud that I was a part of it because I think it's something very special and very good and very unique and very important. So to be connected, you know, it's very hard to be known in movie business, TV business. It's known as anything. And to be associated with something that is beloved by a lot of people and has respect from a lot of people is something I'm very proud of.
Our show is called Oro Negro, that means black gold. It's a clear reference to vinyl records. We're making a special about Sopranos and its music. You can take apart the TV series from the music. Do you feel that way? There are some times that are turning points in the fiction that are strictly related to the music.
Definitely. And that comes, you know, that starts with David Chase because he was a musician as a young man, and he just loves music, rock and roll in particular, and loves how music has been used in film historically and wanted to use that in television in a way that it really hadn't been before. You know, David really wanted to make a TV show. David Chase, when he made Sopranos, he wanted to make a show he wanted to watch.
Great.
Something that he would find exciting. And this is someone who really loved film, like all of us, but before The Sopranos, he had done some really good television, I think, and was proud of what he did. Television only went so far in terms of reaching the level of quality that films did. And part of that was the way films were edited, the way they would use long takes, more slower pace, talking the way people really talk in life, not just like a script. Music. So part of, you know, his decision to use music was really to create this new space in television, which I think he did.
I remember one great moment, which is like a mashup between The Police, Every Breath You Take, and Peter Gunn, and it's almost like a DJing in a fiction. It's great.
That was the beginning of season 3, if I'm not mistaken. And that idea was David Chase's wife, Denise. She had that idea. For some reason, she felt those two songs work together as the way a DJ would mix it, and she suggested it to David, and you know, that whole sequence, a lot of it was about surveillance, so it kind of made sense. Peter Gunn was I think a detective, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, Every Breath You Take is about watching somebody very,
Yeah.
very intensely. Um, I think those things came together really well.
In the first episode that you wrote, your character is in a coma because he was shot, and the musical leitmotif when Adriana cries for you at the hospital is My Lover's Prayer by Otis Redding. Did you choose it?
No, I wish I could say I did, because it's a very good choice and a cool one. I chose a song called Angel Baby by Rosie Originals. I think it's earlier than Otis' song, but David decided to use the Otis Redding, which works really, really well.
There's a story that we saw in an interview in which you tell that you lie in the Sopranos casting by saying that you knew how to drive. And that you also felt that David Chase didn't like you. How did you go from crashing the car in one of your first scenes with James Gandolfini to write an episode so quickly in the second season? How did you build that confidence with Chase?
I felt he didn't like me when I auditioned, and that's really just based on his personality, because I didn't know him at all. And David is a very, you get his sense of humor and how he is. But if you don't know him, he could seem very, very serious. And as an actor, when you audition, you're very vulnerable. Unless somebody's saying, oh, that was very good job. If you don't get that, then you feel like you're not doing a good job. You know what I mean? So that thing with David Chase was just because I never met him before. And it turned out he did like me because they brought me back to do a test for the network. As far as the car, I don't think I ever said, I lied and said I knew how to drive. I just didn't tell them that I didn't drive. Because on the script, in the first episode, Christopher drives Tony Soprano. So I'm thinking, well, it can't be that. I mean, maybe I drove a few times in my life, but I didn't have a license. I didn't have a lot of experience. But I figured, well, it's TV. They're going to block off the streets and I'll be driving, or they'll put me sometimes they put the car on a truck and pull the whole rig. I thought it would be something like that, but it wasn't. And I did crash there. But, I think David just felt that I was right for the role, and that despite crashing the car, that had nothing to do with my acting or my ability to play the character. And I think he felt that ability remained intact,
Let's talk a little bit more about music and writing. We have your book, The Perfume Burned His Eyes. It's a coming-of-age story about a kid who is being raised in New York, and he gets to know a lot of things. He's got his first job, and he kind of become friend with Lou Reed. What does Lou Reed mean to you?
Well, Lou Reed was a hero of mine, for many, many years. When I was a young man, in 20, I lived in Greenwich Village in New York City, downtown New York. And Lou Reed lived in Greenwich Village, and once in a while I would see him walking around. It was very strange to see somebody who you admired so much as an artist being in your neighborhood walking around. But years later, we became friends, So like the last 10 years of his life, I knew Lou. When I started writing the book, I didn't initially write it when I started with Lou Reed in the book. It was just a story about this boy, 16 years old, because I had a son. 2013, I started writing because my son was 16 at that time, and I wanted to relate to the 16-year-old mind. So I started writing this story. I set it in 1977 because I liked that time period. I also wrote a movie called Summer of Sam that was set in 1977. Although I was very young, 1977, I was only 11, so I wasn't out doing things. I was still a kid, really small kid. But I liked that period of time, the music and the culture, and it just means something to me. So for about 3 months, I was writing this story, and then in October 2013, Lou died. And that hit me on several levels: as a New Yorker, as an artist, as a fan, and as a friend. And in the middle of, and it was very hard to say goodbye to him. It was hard thinking that Lou Reed was not in the world anymore. Lou Reed was not in New York anymore. Lou Reed was not going to music anymore. Because for all of my adult life and teenage life, we had him. It meant a lot to me. And then I had the idea to put him in the story, which for me was a cathartic, I think, way of saying goodbye.
We felt that about Maradona.
I feel that way about Maradona. He's a soccer player. See, I just had an argument the other day. I'm shooting in Italy. A lot of football fans. And I had an argument. Messi's the best ever. And I said, no, Maradona's the best ever. Messi's great. Maybe number 2. But Diego will always be number 1. So, I don't know. So you're Boca fans or River?
Yeah.
She's Boca.
I'm from Boca.
You're Boca.
I'm from Independiente. It's another team.
And you get along, you're friends.
Sorry?
And you're friends, the two of you.
Yes.
You're not enemies.
Yes.
No.
Of course.
No.
Of course. When Maradona...
I went to the stadium where the Boca plays when I was in Argentina. There was a museum there.
Yeah.
The stadium I went to see, yeah.
Museo de la Pasión Boquense.
I went there, yeah.
When did you visit Argentina?
2003.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah. I haven't been back. I wish I could. I love it.
Did you like it?
Yes, I only went to Buenos Aires, but what a beautiful city. Yeah, really, I loved it. Loved it a lot, actually.
Let's talk a little bit more about music. Do you remember which was your first vinyl record that you bought?
A Night at the Opera, Queen. When I was 10.
Did you hear any song in the radio? You like the cover of the record? You have?
I heard the song on the radio, Bohemian Rhapsody, and it was a very strange song. I had never heard anything like that on the radio, about this guy who killed someone and now they're gonna kill him and execute. I mean, it's a very strange song if you think from a kid's point of view. And it was on the radio, and then they're singing opera. I'm like, what is this? Is so strange. But I couldn't stop listening to it. So I wanted to buy the record, and my mother said, no, just buy the single. The record's too expensive. You don't need the record. You just like that song. I said, no, I want the record. I want the album. I want all the songs. And I got that album and listened to that album so many times, over and over and over again.
Question about Zopa. Tell us about that. The beginning of Zopa.
The beginning of Zopa was, I had been in a couple of bands earlier. One in 1986, a no-wave band, kind of a noise band with no singer, called Black Angus. That was when I started playing guitar. And then we played in New York a little bit. We didn't record any records or anything. And then I sang in a band for a little while, an indie rock band, and wrote some songs with them. And that didn't really last too long. I had to leave the country for a while, and they got another singer, and that wound up being a band called Wild Carnation, who they made some records. They're actually very good. And then I missed playing music, so at one point I wanted to find her, because I thought that's always a good way to start. And I ran into a musician friend of mine who used to be an actor named Michael played guitar in Jeff Buckley's band on the Grace album and toured with Jeff. And Michael was an actor before that, and we had worked together, and we had done a movie together, and Michael's younger brother was in the movie. For some reason, I felt I had to contact him, so I went to the bookstore where he worked. Several times I couldn't find him. I would go back every few days and found him, and I said, do you want to play music? Very strange, because he hadn't seen me since he was a little boy, and he's like, okay. So we met, and I had some ideas, and we started playing, and it felt good, and he said, do you want to work with a bass player? I said, sure. And he said, I know a guy I went to school with. So the next practice, Elijah, and that was 2006, and that was the beginning. And then we recorded our first album in 2013, but we never released it until 2021. And then we toured last year. We toured this year in January, February. We toured a little bit last year. We're going on tour again in August, and we're going in the studio beginning of August to record some new material. That's the story.
And what's the main difference between playing when you were almost a kid 30 years ago and now going on stage with Zopa? Do you feel the same vibe?
Well, I feel much better now because I can play better. That always helps. You know, we started in 2006, and we weren't very good. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I wasn't very good. They always were good, Elijah and Olmo. We played a lot of shows in the first 7 years, like tons. We played any place they would have us, we played. Some really horrible places, some very nice places. We opened for people. But now, making sense, at least. I mean, I feel like the sound, like Miles Davis has a quote, he says, it takes a long time to be able to sound like yourself. And I feel like that's very, I understand what he means by that, because that's what I feel like with the band.
And what can you tell us about Red Sky? That's the latest single.
Red Sky was the first recording we made since 2013, and Red Sky was, I wrote it about a year ago, pretty much in one night, which that's very, very fast for me. It takes me, usually I'll come up with like a chord progression and then a melody, and I'll just play it to death. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes I'll leave it and pick it up again months later. One of the new songs we're going to record, I first had like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and then put it on the shelf, then started playing it again last year, and now we're going to record it. But Red Sky just like happened really quickly. And I wanted to write something for my wife, because she was always complaining that I never wrote any songs. I figured I should, and she deserved it. You know, I don't, I'm not good at like saying, I want to write a song about, the war. And then I go do it. It's so, I can't explain. You start with playing some chords and then things come from, I don't know where. And I said, let's just record this. And in September with a producer that I had always wanted to work with, John Agnello, and had a really good time. And we're going to work with him again in August. You know, he's done a lot of great stuff with Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and Kurt Weill, and he's really good. So that was fun.
What is the worst thing about having played Christopher Moltisanti in and out of fiction?
I'll tell you the truth. In the fiction, there was, for me as an actor, there was nothing bad about it. I mean, he was a bad guy and had a lot of problems. Certainly, did a lot of horrendously awful things. But in the playing of it, it was always just grim. In real life, I guess the worst thing is sometimes people that whatever mentality they see on screen is your mentality. Although I don't really let that bother me. Like on social media, like Instagram or something, you really get a sense of that. Especially if I post certain things, political stuff, about gun control or about gay rights or about trans rights or about the war in Ukraine, things that I'm passionate about, and people expect me to be right wing, like, pro guns or anti-gay or something. Like they think maybe that's how Christopher would be and think that I'm going to be like that, or they want you to be like that because they're like that. I don't really know. Sometimes they've accused us of glorifying gun violence with The Sopranos, which I don't really think watching The Sopranos is going to make you want to go and shoot up a school and kill kids. And I think The Sopranos, people certainly like those characters in many ways, I think because of, we tried to show them as human beings, not just as bad. So many movies, it's the bad guy and the good guy, and the good guy's the cop, and the bad guy's the robber, the good guy's this side of the army, and the bad guy's the other, and it's like, life isn't always so black and white.
What did you feel when you heard the Journey song in the last episode of The Sopranos?
David told me a year before, I said to him once, how do you think this show is going to end? And he said, well, I see it, everything goes to black. Which I didn't really know what he meant. It all just goes to black, right? So, when The Sopranos was originally on, it was on every Sunday night, right? For 13 weeks. So the finale was Sunday, I guess it was, I don't know, June, whenever it was, 2007. Everybody was going to be watching, right? It wasn't like streaming where 13 episodes are on at once. You have to wait every week. None of us had seen it. And we did an event in Florida. Most of the cast were there. It was like a big party. We went on stage, we did questions, and then at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, the show was going to be on, and the audience was going to watch on a big screen, and we went into a private room, and we started the finale, which none of us had seen. And then you could see it's about an hour into the show, it's coming to an end, and all of a sudden this song starts, and I'm like, whoa. This is kind of a weird choice. But it was very, very moving and emotional not only because the last episode, I knew it was the last time we weren't going to be working, because we had been together by that point 10 years. The pilot in 1997. We went back 98 and did the first season, but this is 10 years we had been together, and I knew that it would never be the same again. We're not going to be shooting, and that was so when the music came on, I knew this was the last scene, and I'm looking around the room at all these people who are now really good friends, and I know this part of my life is over. So it was very, very bittersweet. It was very happy but sad. I think a lot of the people were very confused by the ending. I thought it was a very good ending.
Yeah.
But even though I knew what was happening, it was still a surprise.
Qué notón, como se dice en inglés, what a noton.
Qué inglés raro, ¿no? El nuestro.
El nuestro sí rústico, esa cosa que no se ensaya, que uno piensa que la maneja, pero no, la maneja de acá y después cuando sale para afuera queda como eso. Igual se entendió, ¿sí? Hablamos con el corazón, with the heart, como dicen.
Complicado entrevistar a los ídolos del arte, ¿no? Difícil, pero bueno.
Sí. Pero salió, hablamos de Tutti, ¿sí? Como dicen los chicos ahora, hablamos de Tutti. Este es el canal de YouTube de Oro Negro, hay un montón de videos, hay unboxings, hay DJ set, hay entrevistas. No sé dónde es la botonera, pero voy a hacer como así, suscríbanse.
Y agradecemos las compartidas.
Las compartidas.
Compártanla.
compártanla, ¿sí? Se la quieren mandar a su abuela que nunca vio la tele, mándensela igual. Y me parece que el trípode se sigue inclinando, así que nos vamos yendo. Gracias.